ちょっと、髪が乱れるじゃない。
Arknight's cast features the medic class of operators. Their role is to do one of the most important functions in the game, healing fellow allies. A majority of the game's content can be trivially solved with a medic or two who heal and occasionally activate a skill to do some slightly better healing to weather a harsh wave or a boss's attacks and skills. Medics are one of the cornerstones of Arknight, because without them, many strategies would be straight up impossible and the game wouldn't be as complex without them. Today, I want to touch on Ceylon, the original therapist medic that introduced the game to bigger medic ranges, new things called statuses, and the disappointment in her kit. This won't be so much a discussion of, oh, she got power crept, like I discussed with the Besiegers. Ceylon just did not work as a unique unit even prior to release of her fellow contemporaries like Whisperain, Pierstream, and Lumen. I think it's something worth giving a greater lens to peer into. So let's talk about Ceylon Doikos, the medic who was flawed with promise. And before we begin, we're gonna say Ceylon, not Ceylon.
Lady Ceylon.
I don't care what Schwartz's EMVA says, it's fucking stupid. So, let's quickly show off Ceylon and go over her personality and kit. She is a 5-star therapist medic who dropped as the welfare from the first summer event, Obsidian Festival, Heart of Surging Flame. In the event, Ceylon, in her father's planned absence, discovered the volcano Siesta was bound to was imminent to erupt. Ceylon and the Rhodes crew figure out her father's catastrophe messenger and partner, Cronin, had been exploring the volcano to mine special obsidian for profit. Ceylon is the first coddled by both Cronin, purposefully, and her friend/bodyguard, Schwartz, and while unable to see eye to eye, she has a tenuous yet somewhat thoughtful relationship with her father, Herman. There's also Ceylon Adele, but I'm gonna pretend that plot never happened because I'm in no mood to read up about a fever dream of everyone's favorite plastic cup.
Oh my god!
I think Ceylon as a character is quite fun. She's extremely versed in Originium studies, wishing to one day find the cure for Schwartz's neuropathy, and is not someone who likes to stand idly by like a princess. She looks the part, but is not one to back down from an argument that challenges her character. And while a lot of Obsidian Festival's plot is very, and then this happened, I still think they do a decent job characterizing Ceylon as a fun deuteragonist with a penchant for being prepared, organized, and not one to be put down by higher authorities like her father and Schwartz. However, I do find Ceylon's personality a tad Kohai-ish? Hell, she even initially joins Rhodes Island under an internship like she's Beagle.
My codename is...
This sweet, fun-hearted, do-gooder personality is similar to Aofiala, and not in a good way, and Ceylon's extreme attachment to Schwartz, while very sweet in concept, becomes somewhat just part of her character like a conjoined twin. This really hurts a lot of her more interesting qualities, like she's a dutiful student or that she follows a strict personal schedule, similar to Folonik. I don't think this personality is bad, but it leaves much to be desired and she can feel generic similar to Breeze. They even have similar dispositions toward their parents. As for her kit, she was the first therapist medic and brought in a new wave of mechanics. For starters, she has wider range than your standard medic. The tiles in red show that she heals allies for 80% of the usual amount, similar to Lord Guards with their 80% for damage that are not blocking the targets they're attacking. An interesting trade-off. Ceylon's talent gives her plus 5% attack by default, plus 18% attack if the map has water. This applies to, and I pulled directly from the Terra Wiki, all water stages in Obsidian Festival, Desal's Holiday, Annihilation 10, So Long Adele, and a few random stages, but does not include events like Ideal City, despite the fact there is water everywhere, the Seaboard events, Undertides, and Stafforia Navis, and not even Integrated Strategies 3 count. Ceylon is kind of bullied for no reason. Her S1 provides allies with a substantial boosted 170% attack that is not decreased by the trait that gives her quite good HPS, especially at M3 where it's 200% and can hold 3 charges. This often gives her an HPS range of 12 to 1600, and because it's unaffected by her trait's range debuff, this is actually a really good skill. For her S2, she gets a substantial attack boost, can heal 2 allies, and all allies in range get status resistance with an attack range for the entire 30-second duration. For statuses, the most common ones were Stun and Freeze. These mechanics were slowly introduced in chapters 5 and 6, and in Ceylon's event through the Stun Sniper enemy. For a majority of Arknight's Year 1 content, the Stun Sniper, the Defense Crusher, and Glacial Slug were the biggest threats to operators that status resistance was really useful against. Ceylon has some odd issues, however. Her S1, while a really powerful HPS skill, is difficult to find situations to make the best use of. In most situations, you would really just need one medic with average healing. In maps with gimmicks like the Poison Haze, you want to bring an AoE medic, and in maps where elemental damage is a big deal, such as stun elemental damage, you typically just want to use a Wandering Medic to circumvent the stun entirely instead of relying on a Therapist Medic. Essentially, if the situation changes where usually you need to change up what medic you bring, the overall HPS isn't nearly as important except in higher end content. This is the same problem with Breeze, where all because she has high HPS but no other value, this means she's going to be thrown to the wayside as not nearly as useful. The same applies to Ceylon in this regard. As well, Ceylon's S2 suffers from being the epitome of skills that are generally not useful, the 80-second SP requirement. This is a problem that plagues a lot of early super strong skills, as I'll call them. Stuff like Breeze S2, Silver S3, AF Yala S3, Mostima S3, etc. The 80 seconds means you will be able to use a skill once or twice in a battle, which restricts how much you use it. Oftentimes you want skills for the new effects they provide. For example, Silver Ash S3, he gains quintuple targets, a massive attack boost, and a range increase at the cost of reduced defense and a long cooldown. Meanwhile, Ceylon S2 provides some useful effects, including status res to all opposite range, but I don't think this justifies its 80-second cooldown. This issue was overall fixed for future operators, almost to an egregious degree for operators like Starter, Reed Alter, Golden Glow, Poziomka, but this was never addressed for Year 1 operators retroactively, and for good reason. This problem with her S2 speaks a lot to how future Therapist Medics became. In a test of Ceylon's skills, S62, I used Ceylon with S2, Piercing with S1, Whispering with S2, and Luma with S2. Ceylon performs awkwardly because I can only use her S2 once, and while it's up again at the very last enemy of the stage, I can no longer properly use it to its fullest potential. Conversely, with Pierstream and Lumen, they actively give status resistance upon healing an ally without the need of skills. Lumen with S2 is capable of even removing the status of overcharge. For Whispering, she can dish out some insane healing with her HP regen talent, and her S2 provides a permanent source of providing resist. With overall lower cooldowns and better access to resistance, Ceylon was bound to fall to the wayside. Even prior to Whispering, I don't think she was raised too often because the need for status res just wasn't justified by her 80-second cooldown S2. If you dropped Blaze in, she got status resistance permanently after 15 seconds, which is insane, and the stage is already done. To test this out even further, I brought Lapin along, who can wipe out the need for Therapist Medics specifically for this stage with its Glacial Slugs. Her Silence talent outright prevents this, allowing me to bring an AoE medic, and I can beat the stage without even needing to worry about these issues these enemies cause. This even happened in OF7 for those with a keen eye in the footage, as she prevented the bottom wave of stun snipers from even becoming a threat as she silences their stun ability. So, while I do think Ceylon has some usage, I feel she still falls into a pitfall of a skill with high SP cost, of mediocre value, and her talent can only be used in a handful of stages. Even though she's free, she languishes by the virtue of not being an outstanding pick, even when Obsidian Festival first debuted years ago. While statuses were not a big deal in Chapter 6 with Frost Nova's Yeti Squad doing freeze cold mechanics, and the slow normalization of these mechanics became commonplace, so it was just incentivized to raise the strongest one you have. Typically people raise Pierstream or Whispering for their cheaper resource costs, and Lumen for the high rarity pick. This leaves little room for Ceylon after Stophoria Navis. So, how do we fix her? I think the most important thing firstly is to change up her talent. I think Ceylon should get an additional attack boost on any map that features water, so this could include some stages like the new Sui event, or Who is Real. Both of these events feature a ton of water, as well as Seaboard events and IS3. I don't mind the status resistance is tied to her skills like Whispering, but I think her S1 could also provide at least a small status res for a few seconds and cut her S2 requirement from 80 SP to 40 SP. I think the double targeting plus status resistance to all allies and range is a super fun skill, but 80 SP is just too much to ask for. I want to preface again that the issue with her isn't so much that these newer units are power creeping what Ceylon can do, but I remember her distinctly not being a big player even when she was the only option for this. Her biggest relevance has become just being tied to Schwartz and fan art in Schwartz's Christmas skin. For a unit that got a module and is pretty much done existing, I would hope for retroactive fixes in the future. Well, that's all for today. Stay breezy everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.
Also, thank you for 500 subs!